Good morning and welcome to the daily cyber briefing for Friday, the 21st of February. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Ivanti Endpoint Manager. Um, there are four vulnerabilities rated between 9.8 and 10 on one of the various CVSS severity scoring schemes. Doesn't say which one in this article. However, it doesn't really matter. These things are serious. CVE 2024 10811, 2024 13161, 13160, and 2024 13159. All four are path traversal flaws, and they were fixed for the Ivanti's Windows based products in the January updates. So relatively simple to exploit. There's an example in the register of how basically passing a string to an API will result in the machine exposing its NTLM v2 hash to a remote server of your choosing. So patches are available. Strongly recommend that you have a look to see if you require these patches and if you are up to date. Also, be aware that there are two versions of the patches. Patch version 2 is the one to go for because it's the patch version 1 causes issues with the Windows Action tab that prevents users from creating new action packages or editing existing ones. So version 2 fixes that. So if you are using Ivanti Endpoint Manager, patch. If you have already patched, make sure you're on the right patch. Okay, interesting article in Cybersecurity News that is talking about credit card skimmers that are being seen on e-commerce sites using Magento. So vulnerabilities in Magento allow for obfuscated scripts to be injected. However, the bit that's clever about this is that the way that the malicious scripts are being introduced is through Google Tag Manager. So Google Tag Manager, for those of us, me included, that don't really know that much about this stuff because we don't really do much in the way of marketing things. We're too busy doing cybery stuff. Google Tag Manager allows non-developer types to change and update tags in order to do things like track whether a marketing campaign is successful or not. So there are times when you want to know, what's the engagement with my, the latest web page changes been, blah, 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 who's doing what kind of thing, the usual sort of stuff. Well, Google Tag Manager allows let's say the marketing team to make changes to the tags without having to engage with the developers and like push a website update out there. Kind of clever idea. However, the misuse of Google Tag Managers will result in the ability to upload things to your websites that you may not be expecting. And I think you can be pretty certain that changes to tags is unlikely to have been security tested. I mean, who would pen test everything that a marketing team did in the way of tagging and tracking things? Almost nobody. So this is quite a clever approach to getting stuff onto your websites. Well, combined with kind of downstream vulnerabilities, using the tag manager to upload malicious scripts, which I'll then run via vulnerable other components as part of the, in this case, the Magento-based e-commerce platforms. This case is allowing for credit card skimmers to be uploaded, and other things such as persistent backdoors, and so on and so forth. It's probable that this stuff is loosely under the Magecart arena, like heading, but Magecart being a decentralized organization of sort of criminal organizations, it's difficult to say exactly what does and what doesn't belong where. So not all credit card web-based credit card skimmers are Magecart. Some are, some aren't. One to be aware of if you are allowing, and the generic issue is if you're allowing people to make changes to your internet-facing systems, web systems, especially e-commerce systems, you need to be very much on top of managing vulnerabilities in the underlying platform components, because whilst in my experience these days the vast majority of web devs will do a decent job of ensuring that nothing nasty gets uploaded to the site, by allowing people who are not necessarily as au fait with what good looks like to do things. Introduces, it expands even the threat landscape of your environment. So how do you get around this? Well, keeping on top of stuff, and thinking carefully about who's able to do what, and so on and so forth, and monitoring, really. Right, a couple of other interesting articles I came across this morning. Pegasus spyware. We all know what Pegasus is these days, don't we? It's NSO Group's spyware, originally written and designed for and sold to nation state organizations in order to basically in order to prevent criminal or terrorist activity. Widely misused now in order to do other things, partly because it looks like NSO Group weren't particularly picky about who they would sell this stuff to, and partly because it's been stolen, it's been compromised, it's been this, that, and the other. So it's a mess. Sorry, NSO Group, but it's not in a good state. So Pegasus targets mobile devices. It uses vulnerabilities in things like iMessage or WhatsApp or other apps to gain root access to a mobile device without user interaction. Once installed, it exfiltrates emails, including encrypted messages. It exfiltrates sensitive documents. It can activate the microphones. It can activate cameras for real-time monitoring. It's proper secret squirrel stuff. It has traditionally been misused, targeting people like journalists in parts of the world where free speech is considered to be a bad thing. Oh, well, actually, you could include the UK in that at the moment, couldn't you? But totalitarian regimes have been very keen on oppressing opposition using these sorts of tools. It is now being seen being used to target commercial organizations. So it is no longer no longer isolated to particular political or journalistic type areas, it is now being seen to be used for commercial espionage as well as all the rest of the stuff that it does. So, what can you do? Well, there are things that you can do to try and identify it. It's difficult to identify whether you've got Pegasus spyware on your device unless you go to a great deal of trouble and you actually kind of understand a lot about Pegasus and you actively go looking for it. There are things you can do though, looking at shutdown logs is an interesting one that they mention in this article. Shutdown logs will record reboot anomalies, which can be caused by Pegasus's sticky processes. Interesting open source tool called iShutdown.py, which will parse logs to identify path irregularities linked to NSO groups frameworks. So that is a pretty good way of looking for this. Expect that now it is known how to identify it, there will be work done that will make it more difficult again. So mitigation strategies for enterprises considering the potential for being targeted by this top-end spyware. Well, lockdown mode in iOS 16 Plus is a pretty cool thing to make sure you've got properly configured. It effectively blocks it applies restrictions that will block zero-click vectors. If your device is in lockdown, it won't communicate with things, and it shuts down the specifically it shuts down the Lightning or USB-C port, so that you can't plug things into a device that has been locked for a particular amount of time, and then use that to force malware onto the device. Regularly inspecting shutdown logs using iShutdown.py or MVT. Network segmentation, we talked about this. Network segmentation, don't allow people to connect to things that they are not supposed to be able to connect to, and using EDR tools and threat hunting to look for Pegasus specific IOCs and memory scanning capabilities and so on and so forth is about the best that you can do. So I know there are a lot of people will be sat there listening to this going, yeah, it'll never happen to me. Bear in mind that you may not think of yourself as a target, but think about if you or your organization were disrupted, would that have a broader impact on anything? And the answer is, even if that's just spreading alarm and despondency within the population, it's probable that any organization being attacked just creates a culture of fear and so on and so forth. So disruption, as well as like actual commercial or political objectives, may well be something to consider. And then finally from me today, excuse me, there has been a report issued that looks at automotive and smart mobility cybersecurity. Pretty damning. Read it yourself, but if you are considering having a car which in any way talks to stuff, which pretty much all modern cars do, be really cautious, because we've known for a long time that information security, cybersecurity in the automotive, well, in your car, cybersecurity in your car is crap. Modern cars can be compromised remotely. They can certainly be compromised if you can touch the car. There are increasing issues around the amount of stuff that's automated and blah, blah, blah within cars. Particular issues are in China. So China talks about the fact that they're leading the way in automotive online security, but they are also producing the most vulnerable devices that are out there, to the point where even the US has banned certain components from being in cars that are sold in the US. So if you've got a modern car, good luck to you. Right. That's all from me for today. Hope you have a good Friday and a good weekend, and I'll speak to you all again on Monday morning.